Raise your glass to Heineken 0.0, great tasting beer with zero alcohol. Cheers to when you're keeping fit or even when you babysit. Cheers to when you choose to drive or at your desk from 9 to 5. But mostly, when your thirst needs quenching, cheers to something so refreshing. To all of these things we say, Heineken 0.0, now you can.
This is the Roy's Boys Podcast with your host, Joshua Marlowe. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys Podcast, powered by Carolina Electrical Services. For all your electrical needs, call Jacob Marlowe at 704-320-7357, and he'll take care of this for you guys. Josh and Anthony here with you as always, and today we're going to recap what was the 2018-19 Carolina basketball season. Of course, we all know it didn't end with the Final Four appearance or a national championship, but a 29-7 record and a 16-2 mark in ACC play left us a lot of memories that we're going to go back and just talk about as a whole. Anthony, how's it going today?
Pretty good, man. Kind of come to terms with the fact that we were out of the tournament. I mean, now the season's over. Now that I am struggling to come to terms with, but, still a little, I was saying it the other night, a little bit excited to look towards next season and see where this team's going to go and how they're going to compete next year.
Yeah, and we'll definitely do that as the summer goes along. But, today we're going to focus on this past season. And so first off, we'll get to the opening tip, which is a interview I had with Adam Lucas yesterday. And I'm going to let you guys listen to that right now. Adam, how's it going today, man?
Doing good, Joshua. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Really love what you brought the last time you were on the podcast. We wanted to get you back on here. We'll go ahead and jump right into it. The season didn't end the way, of course, we wanted to with winning a national championship, but they still won 29 games, set the ACC regular season mark for wins with 16. Can you just kind of put the season into words with what the team accomplished, even though they had a quick exit in March?
Yeah, I think you hit on the highlights there, and of course a couple of wins over Duke, some big wins throughout the year, really. So I think if you had written down what this team achieved and put it in an envelope back in maybe October, I think you probably would have been pretty happy with what the Tar Heels achieved. I think if you look at what's on paper, they might have overachieved just a little tiny bit. I know nobody's happy going out in the Sweet 16, but a lot of teams would be pleased with that. So I think all things considered and the ceiling and everything else, I'd say fairly good season. Not great because it ended short of the Final Four, as everybody knows. But winning the ACC regular season, a share of the ACC regular season title with this team, I think was pretty impressive.
I want to discuss the coaching job Roy Williams did this year. Like you said, if you would have thought after the non-conference schedule this team was 10-3, 16-2 in the ACC didn't seem reasonable. Was this probably his best coaching job, maybe outside of the 05-06 season that he's had while he's been at Carolina?
Yeah, I think the people who are closest to him will tell you that prior to this year, his best two coaching jobs at Carolina were the 03-04 season and 05-06. For different reasons, of course. 03-04, brand new team, brand new coach, everything was new. 05-06, you had to replace a ton off of that 05 team. I think this group goes right up there with those just because of not only the job Coach Williams did, but also the competition they were playing against and that they succeeded against. I think if you wrote down some of the other rosters that the Tar Heels had to go against, you would say, well, that team's probably better than Carolina this year. But Coach Williams, as he usually does, I think a lot of people were somewhat disappointed with in November and December and turned it into a group that by March, I really do think was playing about as well as anybody in the country.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. We graduate 3 seniors this year, and these guys meant a lot to the program, including Cam Johnson, who was only here for 2 years. I know it's not easy, but can you just try to put into words what they meant to the program on the floor and then, of course, how they represented the university off the floor?
I don't think we'll ever see a senior class like this again on the court, just because of the expectations they came in with, which were minimal, especially for Kenny Williams and Luke May, and the results that they produced, which were incredibly good, and right up there with any 4-year class that's been through the Carolina basketball program. And because of the era we're in and just the way things work today with college basketball and the NBA, I just don't think you're going to see a class come in and succeed like this again. You threw in Cam Johnson, who improved a ton from his junior season to his senior season, or, well, I guess from his first year at Carolina to his second year at Carolina. And you've got three guys who just got so much better on the court. And if it's possible, off the court, they were even better. Everybody knows about Luke May and all the things that he's done away from the basketball court. But Cam Johnson and Kenny Williams are right there with him in terms of trying to make an impact in the community, representing Carolina basketball the way you'd want it represented. So it's a group that is going to be very hard to say goodbye to, and we're going to probably not see the likes of it again.
Moving on, Nazir and Kobe both announced they're going to the NBA, which weren't shocking announcements. Where their place as freshmen to Roy Williams, because they are one and dones, and Kobe was kind of the rare freshman that kind of etched his place in the Carolina lore. Just kind of speak on that for a minute.
Well, I think Kobe's the easier one because he had such a huge impact this year. I think you put him right with Brandon Wright in terms of the very best players who played one season at Carolina. And, man, you would have liked to have seen him for another one. But we're not going to get to it, of course. I think Kobe White maybe a slight edge just because he had to play the point guard position, which is so difficult. But he did it so well. And I think with even just one more season, I think we'd be talking about him as maybe one of the best point guards to ever play that position under Roy Williams, maybe even at North Carolina. As it is, with just the one season, I think you say, well, he had a great freshman year, and it's hard to go much further than that. Nasir, that's a tough one. The player we saw in those first two games of the NCAA tournament is what everybody was hoping for from Nasir Little throughout the year. A little bit inconsistent, but I think that also had to do with some injuries. Really unfortunate injury in the Virginia game, which both hampered the Tar Heels in that Virginia game, and then they hampered Little for a couple weeks after that. And then for him to get sick the week of the game against Auburn, of course, everybody's always going to wonder what might have been with a healthy Carolina team that week. I don't think Nasir Little goes on the same shelf with Brandon Wright and Kobe White as far as hugely important one-year players, but certainly had a big impact. And don't forget, he made academic All-ACC in one semester, which is pretty hard to do.
Right. So we've mentioned they're graduating three seniors, and you lose two quality freshmen. That leaves the roster in a big a question as maybe ever under Roy Williams. And we've known that they've checked in with multiple graduate transfers. Is this going to be the new normal with it seem like Carolina's moving to getting one and done players back on campus, and the roster the way it's shaped right now?
I don't know that I'd call it the new normal. I think maybe this is sort of one extreme edge. Carolina's been on the other extreme edge in a couple recent years where they knew they had everybody coming back, and they knew as soon as the college basketball season was over, they knew exactly what they'd have next year. That's probably not normal either. So I think they're somewhere right in the middle this year, but maybe a little more towards the unusualness of not knowing what's going to happen. I think by May 1st, we'll have a much better idea of who's going to be on that roster for 2019-20. But as it is constituted right now, there are definitely some question marks on that team.
This is going to be a really big summer for a lot of guys going into next year. If there's one guy that you would pinpoint that said he has to improve his game individually and then to help the team collectively, who would that one guy be?
Yeah, that's a tough question because of what we just talked about and not knowing for sure exactly what roles each individual is going to play on next year's team. And so for that reason, I would probably cheat a little and maybe go with somebody who can play a lot of different positions on next year's team, and that would be Leaky Black. I think before he had that ankle injury down at Georgia Tech, we were starting to see the player he could be who can do a whole lot of things. He can play 3 different positions, maybe 4 different positions. Might have been even one time this year he played 5 different positions. Carolina's not going to need him to play all 5 next year, I hope. But certainly he could play 2 or 3 different spots for you. Carolina may need him to play quite a bit of point guard. We don't know for sure. They're going to probably need him to be able to put the ball in the basket in a variety of different ways. So I think, and the old thing that Dean Smith always said, that you see the most improvement between the freshman year and the sophomore year. If that's the case, then Leaky Black should be in for a really big summer and hopefully a really big sophomore season.
One last thing, and I'll let you go, and this is we're going to have a little fun here. Last week, Kevin Durant mentioned on a podcast that when he was being recruited, he wanted to play at Carolina, but mentioned playing time with that loaded 07-08 team as the reason why he chose to go to Texas, where he'd be on the floor a lot more. Could you just envision him on that 07-08 team that ran through everybody until they got to Kansas in that Final Four game?
I think that certainly was nice of Kevin Durant to say. I think there might have been another issue or two there that maybe he forgot to mention. But for whatever reason, if he had ended up on that team, then I would happily have replayed that Final Four game against Kansas. And I will tell you, Joshua, with 100% certainty, it would not have been 40-12 in that game there in San Antonio. That game would have had a much different outcome.
Yeah, that definitely was a fun topic to discuss. Adam, I want to thank you for joining me today. We appreciate all you write for us and all your contributions on the Carolina Insider, and I'm just glad you gave me a few minutes of your time.
I appreciate it. Anytime.
All right, guys, there you go. That was Adam Lucas of GoHeels.com, and you can catch him on the Carolina Insider podcast, which will release a new episode Friday as they get us ready for the spring game. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Go Tar Heels. All right, so that was Adam Lucas of GoHeels.com. Really gave us some good insight yesterday. He really gave me a unique answer when I asked him about the one guy that needs to step up in the offseason, and I kind of forgot about Leaky when I asked the question. And Leakey's a guy that I'm a really big fan of, love his game, but I was kind of leaning more towards Brandon Robinson is what I expected to get, because his role is going to really increase next year, or maybe even Garrison Brooks taking in a bigger step offensively, because he's going to have to be able to give us some more points consistently inside. But Leakey is a guy that is also going to have a bigger role next year with you're losing your ball handler, and if you don't get a point guard in this recruiting class, you're really going to be short of that position. So, and he'll be a guy when we get to the player part of the summer where we recap their year and preview their summer, we'll talk heavily about. But just a unique answer. Shouldn't be surprised, because Adam Lucas should start the Leaky train with the Carolina Insider podcast. Has a man crush on him, and but was kind of taken aback by that. So we'll go ahead and let's just talk about the 2018 and 19 season.
Can I make a comment on the Leaky Black? I actually like the pick a lot, and I'll tell you why. Is because you got to think that if for some reason we don't land Precious Achua, I think is how you pronounce his name, then Leaky's pretty much our guy if we don't land someone on the transfer market. Now, Rajon Tucker fits that position very well, and that might be the guy that Carolina goes after. Also, I think his name, what is it, Daniel Utiami or something. I don't remember exactly how you pronounce it, but he's also one of the guys that the Tar Heels are potentially looking at to add there. But Leaky could be a significant player whether or not he starts or comes off the bench, because like you mentioned, point guard also could be an area that's a little bit up in the air, meaning that, they could have to move some guys around. So he could end up playing that Theo Pinson-like role that we saw him playing when we first saw him out there, and we talked about on this podcast. He might have to play that role a little earlier than we may have once expected. So I actually do like the pick a lot by Adam, and I think it's a good one. By the way, our train on this one, can we start the Caleb Ellis train? Let's make that our guy. His dunk in warm-ups is fantastic. This man needs some love.
Yeah, he's definitely probably our favorite. We normally have a walk-on every year that we
have our bench guy. Aaron Rollman was our guy for a few years, and Stillman White also.
And now Caleb Ellis has kind of gotten that role. Him and KJ.
I love KJ.
From the Blue Squad are probably my two guys. But let's just talk about 2018-19.
Mm-hmm.
Difficult way to end the year, but if you'd have told me after December, heading into the new year, when we were 10-3 in the non-conference season, looked really bad in the 3 losses, most notably at Michigan and then against Kentucky in the CBS Sports Classic, that this team would go 16-2 in the regular season of the ACC play, win at Cameron Indoor Stadium when they were ranked number 1 in the country, beat Duke on your home floor on your senior night to sweep Duke, and tie for first overall with Virginia. I don't know what I would have said. I'm as optimistic as a Tar Heel fan as there was. I did not see what the ACC season became.
Oh, I tell you what I said
in early January.
I'll tell you exactly what I